Awesome. Well, first and foremost, welcome to the Sales Podcast with Eric Gravely. Great name, by the way. And with me today is a very special guest, my guy Austin Levin. Austin, welcome to the pod. I hope I said your last name properly,
Yeah,
by the way.
Levin depends on the depends on the day. It could be either.
Okay. Okay.
So you're
Whichever.
good. You're good.
Awesome. Awesome. So first and foremost, how is 2026 treating you so far, my man?
2026 is good. Besides the snow up here in Philadelphia, I am not happy about.
I'm
We are
sure.
off to a good start to the year. Thankfully, everybody's healthy. Everybody's good. So life is good. Well, we do have another foot of snow that's coming this weekend. So if you ask me on Monday, I will tell you maybe not so good. I don't know why I choose to live here, other than just the fact that I was born here. But I will tell you that it is definitely tough talking to my friends like yourself that are down in the Florida Tampa area. You're like,
Yes.
oh man, it's
Yes.
55 today. It's come like that sounds like the summertime. I don't know what you're talking about. Cold. So yes, very jealous, but otherwise, off to a good start to the year.
Well, listen. I will say we're getting our fair share of cold down here. I know it might not sound like it with the 50 degrees, but it is a little chilly for it to be Florida. But in all honesty, I do miss the Philadelphia area, 100%.
That's right. I don't even how I totally forgot. You're a Philly guy.
Yes, sir. So now that we first off, let's establish.
Oh
I have few questions that I want to ask you, right?
yeah,
Because
please.
just to give people some background, right? So you are a, let's call it, a high net worth individual. So you are the first of on the podcast. So I'm going to dive into some things about entrepreneurship. I'm going to
Please.
dive into some things about marketing, maybe mentality.
Yeah.
But I want to hear your story. I want to kind of get to know you a little bit
Yeah,
better
absolutely.
than I do.
Can give you can give you the full story. I can recite it in my sleep. So
I love
my
it.
story is not that interesting personally, I guess, but to kind of understand me, my story, and kind of where I am today, you got to go back some generations. So my family, I'm Jewish. My family, the majority of my family came over to the U.S. During the Holocaust. For those that survived, um, we my grandparents were children of immigrants or second generation here. Um, their parents were born here when they were young, or actually some of my grandparents were born in Europe. So my grandparents, my dad's parents, uh, were born here in the Philadelphia area, grew up lower, low, lower on the income spectrum. They grew up. My grandfather grew up in South Philadelphia. My grandmother grew up in like kind of down by the airport area, so say like kind of bordering Chester County.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very
Uh,
familiar with the
you
area.
know, like grew up poor. You know the way to say it, right? Like they did not have any money. My grandfather, worked in a bunch of different jobs, but worked in eventually in a hardware store. My grandmom worked as a secretary, an accountant in an office, and she actually tells a story to tell you how the times changed. That when she got pregnant with her first child, they fired her because she was pregnant because they're like, you can't work here if you're
Oh,
pregnant. So you kind of think about how times have changed, right, in the
yeah, for
world.
sure, for sure.
So they had two children, one of which younger of which being my dad. And when my dad was 4 years old, my grandparents decided to just kind of try their hand at entrepreneurship. And I think people a lot of times only equate entrepreneurship with like these large creative ideas and just like growing this massive business. But obviously, for especially back before the kind of tech boom and some of these faster startups, like a startup was what you built in your garage, right? So
Yeah,
that's what a
yeah.
startup was. So that's what they did. My grandfather and grandmother, they began assembling glass block units and jalousie windows, which were basement windows, using some of the stuff from the hardware store, and little by little grew what was a local business. They were selling these products to local contractors that were then going and installing them in homes. And what started in a little garage back in I guess 1975-ish timeline, between 1970 1975, timeline, grew little by little each year into a smaller manufacturing business to where they started making replacement windows, aluminum windows for homes. So if you needed a window for your house that had failed, it was mostly replacement, not as much new construction. But if you needed to replace a window in your house, your local contractor would go to my grandparents, who would manufacture and actually assemble the product and make the product and sell it to them. It was a very small business, 10, 15, 20 employees. And in 1986, my dad graduated high school and my mom and dad are high school sweethearts. They were together. My dad
Nice.
graduated high school, mom went off to college, and my dad saw this business and realized that what was a really small regional manufacturing business had opportunities to grow. So over the next 15 years, they grew from maybe 15 to 100 full-time employees, increased their manufacturing space, added some, more and more product offerings. Uh, I was born in 96. When I was a little kid, it was like still a small business, but was growing. We had one small factory and so on and so forth. And all the money that we were making continued to be reinvested into the business to grow what was small, but maybe was becoming like teetering a medium-sized business. And then my dad and mom, who both worked in the business together, really made the decision to try to grow the business. In 2001, my grandparents retired. My grandfather ran a business from 1975 to 2001 and never touched a computer in his entire life.
Wow.
So you can just think about the times and the difference. 2001, like I said, my grandparents retired. My parents bought my grandparents out of the business, and the business then took kind of the next step. And over the next 10 to 15 years, we went to, in manufacturing hundreds of thousands of windows a year. We had 1,100 full-time employees. We were, sitting under about 700,000 square feet of manufacturing space, distributing products as far west as the Rockies, and we're a very, 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 family-run, well-oiled machine. I'm going to just call it a successful business. It was, for me, really cool. I grew up around entrepreneurship, multiple generations of it. I grew up very much so ingrained and like just sort of involved with the business is probably the best way I can say it. Like the kitchen table was always about the business. My weekends, I was spending time in our business. The business was super diverse because it was a manufacturing environment. We had people from a wide spectrum of socioeconomic backgrounds, ethnicities, languages, neighborhoods, so on and so forth. So it was really like an amazing experience for me to
That's
get to
awesome.
really be around a diverse group, and it has certainly shaped me. And then also just to like learn what work is, and also be exposed to like really hard conversations. Being 13 and 14 years old, being around hiring, firing, drug addicts, being around, really crazy conversations and business meetings and things like that like a lot of people at a younger age don't get exposed to. So for me and my sister, who I'll talk about a little, I'm sure at some point during this as well, but I only have one sister. We sort of knew that our path was to be the third generation of the family business and see where we
Absolutely.
would take it, right? How would we put our own spin on it? In 2018, I was about to graduate college, and we were approached by a private equity group that owned a even larger version of the manufacturing business that we did, and they acquired the business after kind of a long process. It was a pretty awesome thing for our family. It set up generations of wealth, and it was the right time. It was after 45 to 50 years of your family's identity being wrapped up in a business and sort of all the emotional ties to it. It just made financial sense and it made family sense. I graduated, joined the business for a couple years, which was cool. Yeah, I got Tulane
I've
University,
heard. I've
at Roll
heard.
Wave.
Go Green. No, that's North Texas. So
Yeah,
go
that's who
Green.
we beat in the conference championship.
There we go. I actually watched that. So
Yeah,
yes, great
that was
job.
that was uh, that was a whooping. That we gave it to him.
Yeah,
But yeah, joined our family business out of college. At that point, once again, we just went through with the transaction. Stayed there to help transition the business for a couple years. I mean, I had been working intermittently through the business all the years. Got a great life experience working at scale. And then at 25, I left the business. Our family had fully exited, kind of eventually made the clean break. And then I found myself in a really unique position, young, very entrepreneurial, extremely hungry. I am not someone who has any interest of sort of living off other generations' money. I want to blaze my own path and sort of create opportunity for myself, and I have the capacity to do so. I also, though, had the liquidity and the funding to go, try to find an industry in which we could, go into. And I knew I wanted to do something more financial services driven. Like my personal interest was less on the engineering and manufacturing side and was more on the personnel, sales, marketing, like just the interpersonal side of it. So I knew I wanted to find a business that was more professional services driven. And the story goes that my dad had a friend that was running a Medicare call center, and he was like, "Hey, this is really interesting. Just check this out." And I was like immediately intrigued. I was taken back for just many reasons. Um, you know, I was interested. I'm sure we'll dive into this space and the space we both work in. But the long and short of it is that what drew me to it was the financial opportunity for the agents. I liked that it was a zero premium product that we could, really truly help people, and I liked the long term residual value. And I just thought that this space was missing a lot of mid market companies. I think there's a lot of mom and pop brokers, and also there's a lot of like massive multi-thousand person call centers. So
Yeah,
not much in
absolutely.
between. So since 2022, I've been building Core Value Insurance Group. There you go.
Yes, sir.
And today we're 100 full-time employees. Just came off AEP where we enrolled 15,000 new members to our
Let's
company.
talk about it. Yes,
Yeah,
sir. Great job,
exciting,
man.
exciting, and are diving into 2026, seeking new products and going after growth, and just excited to kind of continue this family trend of entrepreneurship. So, only other part of the story is I'm married to my high school sweetheart.
Congratulations.
Her name is Jennifer. We married about almost it's coming up on 2 years, or about soon. And yeah, that's it. That's me.
I love it, man. First and foremost, again, congratulations on everything, right? Fully exiting, diving into a new business. I'd say a successful one, and your marriage. Congratulations, my man. That's
Thank you.
that's a beautiful thing. You touched on a lot, so thank you for that. So there's a few strings I'm going to pull up from
Please,
that, right?
hold on.
So one of the things that I really loved most about what you said was how you spent a lot of time early on in the business. So that's a unique experience for a lot of people, because a lot of people find themselves being the one to try to establish that entrepreneurship, that establish that business for their family. But that's something that you were already kind of ingratiated into. So I'm curious, can you tell us about what entrepreneurship has taught you in your life, both in your youth and then now as a business owner of your brand new company?
So I got to watch entrepreneurship, like I said, from afar, and then from afar, and then up close as I got older, and like really close as I kept getting older. But I was always around it, and then obviously I had the opportunity to do it myself. I think entrepreneurship comes a lot down to accountability,
It's a good
right? I
one.
think that's the one thing that I've learned. I preach it a lot with my people. My grandparents and my parents took wholesome ownership of every decision they made, right? I think one of the things that people don't understand about entrepreneurship is that they only think if you're an entrepreneur, you just get all the benefits of the upside, right? Like, oh, that because that word sounds nice. Like I'm an entrepreneur, it means I'm going to make a lot of money, like it's like a kind of a sexy word, right? But when you kind of like dig deeper, it means you also carry all the risk,
Absolutely.
right? It means you also carry all the weight of the business. It means when other people aren't working, it means you should be working. It means that when someone gets sick of your business or gets tired of it or sees a better opportunity, they can send in the resignation letter and move on, right? You don't get to do that with entrepreneurship, right? So what it takes is a lot of self accountability. It takes owning the wins and the losses, and I can tell you that it's great when you win as an entrepreneur. It's great when you make the money. But also, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to look in the mirror, accept when you're failing, and be able to pivot and evolve fast. my grandfather, the biggest thing I've learned about entrepreneurship, and the one thing I take with me, like I live with this. And my grandfather passed a few years ago. Great mentor. He
Sorry
has
to
so
hear
many
that.
like sayings and so many things that he would use. But he would he kind of passed this down to my dad, who passed this down to me and says it so often still. But as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, you never stay in the same place. If you're not progressing or changing or advancing, you're actually regressing and losing. And in his word, like you're dying, right? Nobody stays the same. So you have to keep moving forward and advancing your business. You have to keep thinking of new ideas, new opportunities. And even if it's marginal, a little bit of improvement each day. A lot of times entrepreneurs get stuck in the rut of just like, they think that they're just, oh, I'm doing well, but they're really just in the same place. And if you're in the same place, all your competitors are moving past you. The industry is moving past you. And you have to be accountable to know when those changes need to be made. And you have to be willing to continue to advance. So I think as an entrepreneur, the two major things I think I've learned or I understand is number one, don't, if you're considering going into entrepreneurship, make sure that you can afford the risk of it not working because you have to take ownership of that. It's no one else's responsibility but your own. And make sure you're willing to put the work in to actually do it. Because there's a lot of smart business operators, Eric, that cannot be entrepreneurs.
I agree with that.
They're
I
really
agree
good at
with that.
managing and they're really good at doing their job. But in the end, they like to just, they like their time off. They like their downtime. They don't want to be bothered at night. They don't want the stress and the risk and so on and so forth. So, and that's okay, right? Great entrepreneurs need people to lead their businesses as well.
Yes,
But
yes, it's true.
having that weight. So that's the first thing, and then the second thing as an entrepreneur is you have to keep advancing, right? You have to keep growing your business, and like I said, even if it's a little step every day, if you are not taking steps forward, you are regressing, and you can get very much lulled into the sort of fallacy of I think my business is doing well, but really you're staying the same and you're not doing anything innovative to grow and change. So that's what my grandfather did well. It's what my father did well. It's what my mother did very well with the business. And that's what we're trying to do in our business is looking at new opportunities and new things that we can do and new relationships and new partnerships because we're not complacent. What works today may not work tomorrow. And because I have to be accountable to my business and take ownership of it, like I can't rely on somebody else to figure that out for me.
I love that. A lot of what you said, I also kind of equate to discipline. Like, yeah, you got to be accountable, but you also have to have that discipline to put
Yeah,
that
very much
foot
so.
forward and really lock in and really focus on your business. So I love that. That was a really good answer. Thank you. So, what would you say is or was a major turning point for you on your journey?
Hmm. I'll talk about this business now. So we tried a lot of different things, right? When we came out of the gate, we tried to be like first do call center work, and then we tried some field work, and um, I would say the number one turning point was when I would say the business hit its lowest point for us, and I think that's often a lot of times they use the rock bottom point, but we hired some agents after not this past AEP, after the last AEP, had some agents leave. We were like trying to pivot. Are we going to be W-2 or 1099? And I had a lot of ideas, but we felt like we were just like the tires were just stuck in the mud. And I had an agent who I put a lot of effort and energy into leave, try to take his book of business, like really try to just kind of get under us. Oh yeah, and
Wow.
which people will do. And I went, and when it happened, it just totally gutted me because I was just like this. You put trust into people, and then I had to look back and look in the mirror, and then I had to ask myself, like, how much control of my business do I have, and what do you want? What are my goals? So I started instead of looking month to month, I looked a year out. I was like, in a year from now, what do I want my business to look like? And a year ago, it was about a year ago this time, some of that happened, and I told myself, I wrote it down. I want to have 100 agents. I want to have a growing book of business, and I'm going to plow my way through it, and I think the biggest turning point, like I said, for me was other people devaluing the value of our business and it pissing me off and working twice as hard to kind of make it happen. Because I don't want to say haters and motivators, but to be transparent and honest with you, um, it's not a bad thing to be petty every once in a while, right? It's not a bad thing to allow those doubters to, because I have to have the ultimate confidence in myself, and I do. I believe, and I say this not to devalue my business partners or the amazing people we have in our company. I think if every single person left me tomorrow, I could rebuild a brick and mortar with my own two hands, right? Because I believe in myself. And I think as an entrepreneur, you
Absolutely.
have to have that belief, right?
I
If
agree.
everything else goes, if ever, because in the end, one person doesn't stop the show, right? You have to have that belief that in yourself, that if someone leaves or something changes or you lose a relationship or you lose a big customer or, something of that nature happens, that you can pivot and you can continue on. And I've had that at many various points in my, career, but, that's the one that I think of. And, that had that not happened, it would have not given me the opportunity to reflect on what we needed to change as a business, and what those changes allowed is for us to be in the position we are today, which is, set up for really great success in an industry that's relatively turbulent.
Love that. For me, when I look at like turning points,
Yeah,
like for one, right, you said it was at a low point in your business. But for some people that I've talked to, not, obviously this is completely off topic, but some people I've talked to, they kind of mention how they get anxiety when they actually finally get the money, when they actually
yeah,
finally burst through that wall and that
yeah.
bubble. Um, and so that's when for them, it can be a turning point because they can look down and see how far it took to get up here, and it worries them that if they make the wrong move
hmm
back down the mountain again, or how do I continue to climb? Like I feel like it could go two ways. So there's again just a very interesting answer. I
A
love that.
lot of it, Eric, is you got to understand your why, and my
Great
why
point.
is a little bit different than other people, right? It just
Could
to
you
be
elaborate
just to
on
be
your why?
clear. Yeah, absolutely. A lot, my why, I mean, certainly want to run a financially successful business, right? Like I gauge the success of our business based on the finances, but the reality is I don't hide from it. I mean, I don't shy away from it. I come from a successful family. I grew up around success and I know what it takes to be successful, right? I tell people this and I'm honest about it. Like I don't have to work. I'm the third generation. My family sold a very successful business. I will be the beneficiary of something, and my family is super close knit. My why is like not to break through a generational wall of sort of economic status. Like the generation before me did that, and that's just the realities for me. And like I can lie about it. I can tell you that that's not the truth, but my parents did something for me as a child that a lot of other families don't do, which is they were very, very, very open about our wealth, our investments, what it took to run the business, what the business made, what as a family, like as I got older, like what we wanted to reinvest in the business and risk. And then also when we made the decision to sell the business, was it the right decision for all of us long term? And was it one that we were comfortable with? So my level of financial literacy growing up was much different than many other kids because my parents chose to expose me and kind of get me what I believe was prepared. Where some other people, a lot of who are in my similar situations, they have trusts, they have absolutely no idea what their family has, and they have no idea that Tulane, you had girls walking around with her mez bags that couldn't tell you what their parents did for a living, right? Like that's like you're like this is like am I living in a parallel universe, right? So I'm very privileged in that sense. So my why is I know my professional capabilities, right? I know and I want to prove to myself, to nobody else. I want to prove to myself that regardless of that financial stability, I am independently able to build a business that has material and personal value. And I want to be able to see that through and grow it successfully because I didn't have the opportunity to truly run. I mean, I was involved and I helped at the end, but I didn't have a 15, 20-year runway at the helm of our family business. And I think for me, maybe it's a little bit ego. Some of it's unhealthy, but it is the truth. I want to be able to prove to myself that that I am able to grow the type of business that I can be proud of and that would, meet the standard of what my family does. And that's my why. So for me, I have a fear of failure. I have a severe fear of failure, right? So when I feel my business is failing, it motivates me more because I know that I have more to give. And I look deep in myself to find and I remind myself a lot mentally, like, you can do this, like you can do this. And what I have proved to myself for the last 4 years is that I believe I can be a good entrepreneur. And the story is just begun. You know, Work is not like an option for me. It's like it's just who I am. It's what I do, and I love it. But my why is a little bit different. So it's not as I would say dollar for dollar financially driven. By the way, I certainly want to make money, and I will gauge the success of the business, of course, on the financial gains of the business. But it's not just that. Um, and by the way, for some it is, and that's okay. I don't judge people's why, right? As long as you have a why to get up every morning and go to work and do your job, and then to me, there's no wrong answer. But definitely for me, it's the being able to just use my natural abilities to the best of my ability, right? I don't want to look back when I'm 50 and go, you were a bum. You gave nothing to this world. You just basically coasted because you could. That is
Absolutely.
I have more of a fear of that than I do anything else.
So we crossed paths in 2022,
Yeah.
and anytime I meet somebody from Philly, um, there's always like a mutual respect there, right? But I will say there was something about you then that I'm starting to see now what it was. I think it's the fire, man. Like there's a certain fire about you that I really really enjoy because I like to think that I have a similar fire within myself. But more importantly, your why, because you kind of touched on it. A lot of people's why is just to touch the money, but the money is not necessarily what does it for you. It might keep score, but it's not necessarily what drives you. It's the proving something to yourself, which is what I think I identify with the most. So I really love that answer. That was awesome. So let me.
Maybe it's the Philly in us. I don't know. It's
I was gonna say
the
that. I
hungry dog,
was
right?
gonna say that. I was gonna say that. So I'm glad you beat me to it. So I think I know the answer to this question just based on our conversation thus far, but I'll ask it anyway. Who would you say has been your biggest inspiration or motivation?
Yeah, I mean, I would lie if it wasn't to say my dad or my grandfather because I was very, very lucky to just follow in a path, right? And it's not just because of like just their success from a financial perspective, but a lot of it's just the values, right? And I think it's my dad, funny enough, came up with the company name, and he's not involved in the business. He's a passive, sort of advisor for me, right? In the sense, I call him when I need a someone to talk to and bounce ideas off, and I'm very lucky that he will. But they ran their business, and they ran it together, by the way, which was at a certain time like impossible to do. But they really had their peaks were at separate times. Either one was at the helm, but they ran it with a similar value set, which was one of a lot of dignity and respect to their employees, and they built a really cool family culture within the company. And I learned so much from that, just about how to treat people and doing things and going above and beyond for others, and how much value that can create for the business, but also how it makes you feel good too, And so I would say, obviously, those two individuals, both just based on work ethic, family values. By the way, they were both phenomenal husbands, right? My grandmother and grandfather. My grandmother's still living. They were married, to the day my grandfather passed. Mom and dad have been high school sweethearts, right? So I've learned both personally and professionally, like as much as I possibly could from those two individuals. My dad, he actually was there. Funny enough, the day that we maybe don't remember that we came in, and I probably met you
Yes, I do
because
remember that
we
actually.
walked into
Yeah.
the call center. We were down in Tampa together. Yeah, it's nice. My dad and I have a friendship even more than a father-son relationship. We're just, we
That's
have that
amazing,
type
man.
of relationship where I'm able to bounce things off him, but we just have similar interests. And he likes to say that he's my brother because he looks like we look alike. Apple doesn't fall far. But outside of that obvious answer, I have two business partners who came with me from our family business. My COO and my CFO, Aldo DeLuca and Eric Gerstenbacher. Aldo, crazy story. Aldo's father, who's still living, 93 or 94 years old, was my grandfather's first
Amazing.
employee. Crazy.
Wow.
So he was our next door neighbor. This is Aldo's senior, who was fresh off the boat from Italy, literally. Was my grandfather's first employee, and grandmother worked for 45 years in our business and then retired. His son, Aldo Jr., was the CEO and CFO of many public companies and so on and so forth. And then back in 2017, my dad convinced him to come join our family business after so many years and helped with our transition, helped us sell the business, so on and so forth.
Nice.
And then Aldo, him and I, when I joined the business, worked a ton together. When after we sold it, we always would joke like we should do something, let's do something together. He's a really, really smart guy. And then Eric is our chief operating officer, and Eric was my dad's COO at the family business for 20 years. And when we started this, Eric is a master operator of businesses, can do,
Awesome.
had no experience. So I bring those two people up because you're really only in a business as good as the people you surround yourself with, and trust is hard to find and come by. So I have two individuals with me along with my sister, but I'll say this for the both of us, have two people with us that are like family to us, that have proven over generations that they're loyal, that they're honest, that not that they won't question us, but that they are willing to put the work in and also mentor us and show us what we don't know. And both Aldo and Eric have been really great mentors for me, and to work with them every day it's amazing. Like to have people with us that it's hard to find people to trust. It's not easy working with family either, but the reason that you
Very
work with
true.
family, or the reason that you work with people that are that close to you, is because they might not always be the smartest or the best at what they do, even though the two of them are. And my sister might not be the smartest, or I not be the smartest, or so on and so forth. But I'll take somebody I can trust every day of the week.
Absolutely,
So
man. Absolutely.
I'm lucky. So I have some mentors in my life, obviously my parents and grandparents, so on. But those are two individuals that I get to work with on a daily basis, that are partners of core value, that came with me and have really helped build it. But they're also both personal and professional mentors.
I love that. I love that. And to your point, like you said, it's important to have good people around you.
Yeah.
For sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, look, I think about Bobby and Dave, right? With Senior Healthcare Direct, like Bobby having Dave and someone he trusts and someone he knows, and like that bond. Listen, Dave and I is an amazing person, right?
He
Dave and
is.
I will
I
tell
agree
you,
with
he's
that.
not the smartest guy in the room. You know what I mean? He's not Dave is a hard worker, and he's a trustworthy person, and he's ride or die. You know what I mean? Like Dave and I. By the way, you put Dave and I in a room, the clock on the wall is probably smarter, right? The both of us. But the difference is that once again, Dave is loyal, Dave is hardworking, and Bob, as he was growing Senior Healthcare Direct, having someone like Dave who we could count on, grow, and know that he's going to watch his six. That's that you can't put a value on that. You know what I
Not
mean?
at
You just
all.
can't. It's almost impossible to do.
I think those bonds, those genuine bonds, those are the ones that are going to stand the test of time. To your point, like you said, I mean, when Bob started Senior Healthcare Directs way back in what, 2011,
Yeah.
2012, and Dave became his top guy, and then years later, he's got his imprint on the business and doing his thing. I love Dave, man. So I
I
agree
do
with you
too.
wholeheartedly. I agree with that.
He's a
So,
mentor. He's another mentor of mine for sure. Bob is too. I mean, those are guys that I've been super lucky. First of all, some people you just meet and you just become friends, because you just have
yeah,
so much common interests and values. But to have people that, really with Dave Minaya, Bob Bache, and Brian Lubin, all guys involved in the AmeriLife senior healthcare direct world and the greater world. Like from the day that I met them, they like immediately opened their arms and were like, whatever you need. And like what started with just having people that gave trustworthy mentorship to like now I mean, they were at my wedding, they're people that have become,
Amazing.
they're people that have become friends, that at levels you don't expect when you meet people, right? But
Absolutely. Yeah.
you know, I also like them because they raise my level. They're smart guys, and they, they. I'll give you one more nugget that my mentor Eric, who my partner talks about. He says you can hang with turkeys and eagles or eagles, right? Like, do you want to soar or you want to be on the ground? And
Yeah.
it's really easy to hang with a bunch of turkeys, but I think that I have found some success, and I also think that my family has found success because we typically surround ourselves with eagles, other eagles, people that want to fly. And like as I've gotten older, I'm 29. I don't know how if you consider that old or young now. Who knows? But to me, I feel old. My knees feel old, but I've just continued to try to find other eagles in my life that I can soar with and not worry about, not try to waste my time with people that are going to pull you down.
Shout out to Eric, man. That was a good analogy.
Yeah,
I would go as far as to say a Philly analogy
it is. It's got some good ones.
for sure, for sure. So, is there anything that entrepreneurship has taught you about you? So I know you
Yeah, I
touched
think I'm a
on the
lot more insecure.
accountability.
Yeah, I think I'm a lot more insecure than I probably thought I was when I was a teenager or a young adult. I think that when you're growing up, I was athletic. I played high school basketball. I always had a girlfriend. Like life was always good. I was arrogant. I had a lot of self belief. And then when you get into a business where there's so many ups and downs, and you start questioning your abilities, you start to like, I mean, not everybody, but at least for me, I started to experience a level of self consciousness I had never felt before. I started asking myself the question. I had almost like imposter syndrome, right? Like,
Mm,
should I really? Am I really capable of doing this? Am I really smart enough? Am I really hardworking enough? Am I poised enough? Is my communication skills, simple as like good enough? Can I lead the charge? Should other people put trust in me and having their families rely on me to deliver them a check every week and grow a business? Like you start having to ask yourself that question, and the self doubt starts to come in, and then you experience failure at times because it's impossible to not, and you question yourself. And I think as an entrepreneur, I learned that I do experience self consciousness like every other person, but I also learned that I'm resilient and I'm able to internalize that, digest it, talk through it. I don't like I would say I'm an over communicator with the people that I like work with and I know and love. Like I don't pull my punches or hold my thoughts back. If I'm feeling that way, like I communicate it, but I look in the mirror and I try to overcome it, and work my way through it. So, and I also think I was afraid of being self conscious, Eric, for a long period of time. It was like weird. It was a
really?
weird feeling to me. I was like, why are you doubting yourself? Why are you feeling this way? You're almost like convincing yourself you're going to fail. And then once again, you just have to be able to adjust and say it's okay. I would say the other thing as an entrepreneur I've learned is like I've had to become okay with failure. Not maybe like complete failure, but I had to be okay with things not working and having
Mm,
bad ideas. And if you are someone that is if you're someone that truly believes so deeply in your idea that you're willing to drive it so deep into the ground as it's failing, you will fail as an entrepreneur. And there were some ideas that I had in the beginning of our business that were very dumb that I took way deeper than they should have, and I just continued to bang my head against the wall because it was my idea and because it's my business, and I think that I need to, I know I'm right. And other people around me were like, "Don't do that," and I'm like, "Well, no, no, I'm going to do it. It's my money, it's my business. I'm going to do it." And then I got my head out from the sand and was like, "Okay, this was dumb. You're being dumb, right? There's no other way to say it." So I think I learned, very quickly that I had to be okay with failing and pivoting, like quick, right? And being okay with trying different things, and also being okay with just taking feedback, and understanding that the people around me are going to tell me. So, I mean, those are all a bunch of lessons, but I would say those are the two most prominent. Just, fighting off that self consciousness and imposter syndrome, and just being okay with short term failure, and not allowing myself and my own ambitions or ego get in the way of the thing that's truly best for the business.
I think a lot of people kind of go through something similar because especially when you step outside of your comfort zone or you're doing, and I think entrepreneurship is one of those things that unless you just have grown up as an entrepreneur your whole life, you're going to experience a level of that, right? So it's very, very interesting insight. Now, I have two more questions here for you, but I want to for you.
I'll keep these last two questions precise.
Oh no, you do your thing. Trust me, you do your thing, my man. What would you say you have in store for the company and core value in 2026? Better question. You did an exercise where you said you wanted to see where you wanted your business to be in a certain spot in a year from now. So, what spot do you want to see core value in 2027?
Two super important things we have to do as a company. Number one, we have to diversify our product offerings. I think anyone who is in and around the Medicare space can acknowledge that being a single product business is not going to sustain long term. It's just very seasonal. And even the seasonality is getting challenged by some of the carrier adjustments and even CMS related compliance reasons, especially in a business too, where your revenue is really at the mercy of the carriers that you work with and how they want to pay their commissions. I mean, we had carriers pulling commissions and making non-commissionable plans on October 14th,
Yeah.
right? The day before
Yes, they
AEP.
did.
So if we don't diversify and add other product lines, we will die. That's just the reality of it.
So, when it
That's
comes
the
to
first thing for
those,
sure.
no, because that's a good question, and I'm curious. Anytime a new product is offered within a business, there's typically some sort of training. How do you prep your team when it comes to new product offerings? Is there a training or some
It's
sort
it's a
of
great question. So I think the first thing is the senior leaders in the company to have a deep understanding of the product, and then the managers and anyone who is in any sort of related leadership position has to fully have a true understanding of the entire product offering, right? Because and that might be bringing people in from the outside to the organization who have that experience. I think some of the mistakes that I made in the beginning was I don't think I brought enough talent in to help structure the business and had enough longevity. Like we tried to figure it out ourselves, and that was a mistake because I think there's a learning curve in the beginning. So I think for us, we'll probably bring in additional support that will help spin up those lines of business. It could be through acquisition as well, for us to grow. But I think what I've learned about training is you can sit in a room and tell someone something as many times as you want, but until they do it, they really don't know what they're doing.
fair
When we
point?
learned this with our new to Medicare agent training, we had about 40 agents that went through this program this summer, and we spent a lot of time simulating what we were going to do. And they got on the first week, and I think they learned more in the first week just talking to clients, and they did during the entire simulation, right? In that simulation over 8, 12 weeks. So I would say about training, don't waste too much time trying to cram everything they could possibly learn into like a classroom environment when they're going to probably learn it via the experience of doing the job. Like someone obviously needs enough of a basis to do it, but I'd almost rather them fail and let us help them as they're failing and doing it than have them in this like sort of like this bubble where they're doing this, sort of simulated thing and not actually doing the job. So for example, one of the lines of business we're looking into is final expense, right? Term life insurance or burial insurance. I don't imagine we're going to spend significant amounts of time having people do simulated related work and spending 8 weeks to train people, right? It's more likely it's going to be less time and more time getting on the phone, talking to clients with guided help with their manager and letting them learn that way, right? Versus more of this sort of sitting in a classroom and having someone lecture to you how you should sell the product, because that just only goes so far.
I agree. Experience is the best teacher, and a lot of time, I think there's a lot of people who learn best by doing. So that's where that experience kind of comes in. Um, but it is a very interesting time in the Medicare space right now because I've been a when I was an agent on the phones way back in what 2016. This time period right now is how it was back then. There was no OEP, so January 1st through the 14th of February was the rapid disenrollment period. It was the one time people could go to a PDP if they didn't like the plan they chose, but that was it. So, this is it's bringing back a lot more memories. It's helpful that I've been in this space as long as I have because I'm able to kind of provide some insight and kind of shed some light on different product offerings. Those are things that the company I worked for back then they were already doing. So being able to kind of put some bring my experience into the fold, I think it has been helpful.
Listen, there's going to be a lot of companies that back out of the space, and I'm licking my chops, waiting for the opportunity. Like, I don't think that this industry that we are in is going anywhere. I think that the money has gotten smarter to the lifetime values because there's a lot of bad actors that just write crap business, and
Very true.
they're heaped commissions, and they have no incentivization for any long term value. And we have a W-2 agent model, but we pay our agents residuals. We do that because
Nice.
we want them to have ongoing long term value with the relationship with their clients. You
That's
know,
really unique too.
it
Not to
is.
cut
It
you off.
is. No, it is unique in the W-2 side of things, and it's an investment. But we think it's a good investment because we think it's going to meaningfully increase our persistency with our clients and just have a better client experience each year. So that's the first thing is definitely the diverse product offerings, and that will happen throughout the year because if we don't, the risk is too high for the scale that we're at. And the second thing is just adding more clients to our Medicare book, whether that be via open enrollment and just doing it at a greater scale, whether that be jumping to 200 agents, 250 agents, because we have the infrastructure to support it, or whether it be through book of business acquisitions. Our business creates sort of EBITDA value by having passive revenue streams, and every year that goes by that you don't add a lot of clients, right? You're sort of just delaying and waiting for more and more of that revenue to come. So if I could, if I had a time machine, I could fast forward, to 1 year. I mean, certainly I would hope the Medicare space the industry itself is in sort of a more stable environment that the carriers have sort of financially aligned with where they want to be. But I hope that we are more diversified, and I hope that we have increased our book of business meaningfully, so that we can continue to grow that asset. Because what I love about this space is that, as well as just sort of just material business valuation, in the private equity space, it's multiples of EBITDA, right? But you're also building just like a material asset in the book of business. So although it does take cash to grow a business like this, you are still building a material asset behind it that does pay out, in sort of a annuity style
Yes,
payment, and I think at some point, like, we will stop growing. Like, this business is not the type of model where you just can continue to add headcount and grow forever, right? It just isn't. You have to let eventually the cash has to catch up. So we won't grow headcount forever. I think we want to be the most efficient group, maybe not not the biggest. Having a lot of agents does not mean you're making a lot of money. Those two things are not directly correlated by any means. So you can more agents means more policies, but that does not mean they're profitable by any sense of the word.
so I want to. This kind of brings up an interesting topic for me, right? So you mentioned having 40 agents go through that new program that you guys had in the summertime, right? And so, in my opinion, I think the best time to do most things is with a clean slate. So when you get
Yeah.
some of those brand new agents, you have a clean slate and you kind of have them go through the training. And the one thing I really love, like I said, I've been in this industry for 10 years now. And I have never heard of W-2 agents getting residual. So if I was on the phone, that would be something that would keep me on the phone a lot longer. And I was on the phone for 4 years, but that's something that could have kept me on the phone working with the
Yeah.
company for an extended period of time because of that benefit, right? So I'm curious to hear your perspective on this with the mindset that I just mentioned. I've had conversations with David Manaya
Yeah.
about purchasing leads for new to Medicare, right? It's
Yeah.
people that
Like
are fresh to
T65
65,
leads, you're saying.
right? But they're expensive.
Yes.
But from your perspective, given how expensive they can be, what would you say is the long term value of purchasing those leads, converting those into sales, and then having them stay with the business for an extended period of time?
It's a great, so I think I'll open it up a little more, right? Let's look at just like this, like the balance of the cost of acquisition versus the lifetime value. It's kind of the age
Okay.
old question, right? Because I think like it directly correlates to what you're saying. So if I was a singular broker agent, right? If I was someone who was going to invest my money into leads, I probably wouldn't invest in traditional call center inbound high, sort of shopper leads. I just wouldn't do that because the persistency is lower, and even though it's a lower cost of acquisition, the reality is that because like let's call there's kind of two types of leads you can buy. You can buy a higher intent web based data lead that someone is going online and filling out, or a mailer or a response mailer card. They're turning 65, right? They're going to cost you more money for sure. The cost of acquisition might be $300, $400, right? But like you said, it could be more of a relationship. It could be a more educated shopper, and the lifetime value would, in theory, depending on the service model of the agent and the agency, could be longer. On the flip side, a lot of agencies, and like myself, are doing more benefit focused marketing, right? Where you have people that are responding to food card advertisement, they're responding to Part B give back advertisement, they're responding to dental, they're responding to vision. They're not looking for a broker relationship, they're looking to increase their benefits. And when you have it, like naturally, when you have someone looking for that, your cost of acquisition is lower because there's a lot more people out there that are searching for those benefits. Like it's not, you can make the phones ring, right? And when you're feeding an agency like the size of the one that that we work in, or we work for, both of us, like individually, like work for different, obviously different companies, but you have to be able to feed a ton of people,
You do, yes.
and you also it's that cost volume relationship. So the margin at Senior Healthcare Direct is not made on the long term value of the client. It's made on having that voluminous kind of like gain of headcount and doing it at a lower cost of acquisition because the converts higher because it's more benefit focused shopping. So I think it depends on the type of business you're running. I think the challenge is for a business like yours, if you're going to buy T65 leads, right? There's a liquidity investment there with no guaranteed return and a lot of questions on what truly is the lifetime value and do we have the service model for it, right? If you were an independent agent out in the field and you wanted to invest in some leads and you were going to go to all those people's homes and sit with them and service a book of 100 clients and then try to grow it with referrals to 150, and you're trying to grow that initial block of business for yourself, that's a really good investment, right? Especially with the right marketing partners. On the flip side of it, if you're trying to feed 100 agents and do it at scale, you're not going to be able to do it financially, like at the scale that you would think you would need to. Maybe you could feed a couple agents doing it, and maybe it is a possible thing. But there's not enough T65 leads. And by the way, they're also an outbound lead, which is definitely you don't have like you don't have inbound T65 call centers, right? That isn't something that truly it doesn't exist. It's mostly data leads, web-based leads, and I got to be honest. I know my agents, they don't like outbounding. They don't want to dial, right? Even on high intent stuff, they don't like doing it. So
It builds
um,
character. Tell them it builds
it
character.
does. It does. I mean, I think every agent should have to do it. But in the Medicare space, obviously, we can only do it with the permission to contact, and it needs something like that. So I would say, in Dave's defense, not Dave's defense, but understanding the seat, it's like there's a balance between what revenue you can generate, what that lifetime value is going to be, and how much it costs to acquire that client. And when you're trying to grow a massive book and do it fast, right, and you have that payroll, the reality is that you're willing to give some money up on the LTV side of it, knowing that you can probably outsell that loss by just continuing to add to your book and having a good service model. The
Makes
reason
sense.
that we do that we do it $5 a month from year two and on, right? To be honest, how good of a retention tool is it? It isn't a great one yet because not anyone, we've done it so recently in the last year that not enough people have the books yet to get paid on it. Once they start getting the residuals in a year from now, I have a feeling that a lot more people, I mean, by the way, we have very good, don't really have any turnover, to be honest with you, from a resignation perspective of productive agents, but it'll be even more powerful once they start getting that money because it just makes it more real. But I would say there's no doubt where the lead comes from and the marketing someone responds to impacts the long-term value of the client. Just does, right? We all know if they're calling in for a food card, if you work in the Medicare space and you sign them up, you know, half of them are not going to renew with you. It's just is what it is. They're going to call another marketing campaign, and
Yeah.
unless you build that relationship, and not, I don't believe in a customer service person doing it. I just don't. Like if you as the broker follows up with the person throughout the year because you're going to make money on them next year, that's the hypothesis. If you as the agent reach out, follow up, call them, we use a CRM called Go High Level. Text them through Go High Level, send them a birthday card, and actually manage your book of business. You're going to have a higher effectuation. You're going to have a lower rapid disenrollment rate and a higher retention rate, year over year than another agent. But in the end, to answer your question, those type of leads, in my opinion, would be for a more boutique shop than something that's doing it at scale.
So starting out small and then incorporating that cost into the budget and starting going slow instead of trying to
Yeah,
get to
you
a certain
couldn't
place fast.
like if you just wanted to go hardcore to T65 campaign, just that like just to even get the volume of the leads for it to make sense in doing it. Like even if they're a T65 campaign, you're still doing it in a call center environment, right? There really is only particularly one type of call center environment that's going to have a higher level of persistency, and that's if it's carrier direct. Our company, one of the cool things we did is we've had the opportunity to make a really awesome relationship with a regional carrier here in Philadelphia that end up replacing their entire internal staff with our agents. So when our agents
Nice,
answer the phone, they answer on behalf of the carrier.
nice.
And they say, this is Austin calling from I don't want to say the carrier, but whatever it is. This is Austin calling from XYZ carrier, or this is not calling. Sorry, this is Austin from XYZ carrier. I'm a licensed insurance agent. That's our book of business. Just to give you an idea, that effectuated and the retention is like 15 to 20 points higher than our other clients because it's carrier direct, right? The person thinks they're speaking to the carrier. They're responding to carrier focused advertisement. Other than that, if you do it in a call center environment, you're going to get call center results, which is a lot more volume with lower persistency and lower retention.
I love these types of conversations because you kind of touched on something like this before. I know I'm not the smartest person in the room, although I like to think I'm pretty intelligent.
You
I
are.
recognize when I'm not that, I'm not there. And so when I speak to Dave or I'm speaking to you, or even if I get a chance to have a conversation with Bob, I value those things because it's a lot of insight. Like I see certain things at a certain level when you guys see things at a more broader scale because you have to deal with a lot more. Which is why I kind of have those conversations with Dave because it's interesting. It's all
Yeah, I
it's
mean, look,
very
you're heading down the right path with it because the reality is that having a higher LTV and a stickier book of business is the most valuable thing a business can do. I mean, I think if I were to go back, if this is such a fun game to play, like, and by the
actually
way,
about
I
to
know
answer
we're
the
over
last
time, right?
question, which is
Is
crazy.
that the last question? All right,
Yeah,
what
it is
would I
actually.
change if I go back in time?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things I would change. I would probably have just, started growing my book faster sooner. But I mean, probably if I knew everything I would have known now, maybe I probably would have built a field agency and just like went hard on that side because maybe it would have had more long term value because you maybe would have been building that book. I don't know. I don't know if that would have worked out. Not that I don't like the call center side of it, but I think there's less scrutiny on that side of the world, and maybe that's just the I would have had a more of a time horizon, and I just think I would have probably just committed to it sooner. I think that there was like always a lot of like learning and what if, but I just would have committed to growing our headcount sooner. But once again, I didn't know what I didn't know, right? Look, when I started this, we were heaping for 3 months, and then we got our heaping contract terminated because the company like went out of business. So we ended up with a Maryland. I mean, it was not a straight path, man. It was a complete just squiggly line. When I came into SHE the first time is because my heap contract got terminated. It was somehow related to AmeriLife, like under one of the umbrellas. And I basically went online and went upstream, and I found Bob, and I sent Bob my story, and then Bob agreed to get on a Teams call with me for when I told my story, it piqued his interest, and he's like, if you can get down to Tampa, let's go to dinner, and I would love to kind of get you on the right path. Uh, that was it. The rest was history.
I love
So,
it.
sometimes you just kind of meet people and you learn from it. But I don't know. I would say, I don't know if I would go back. I don't know what I would do different other than I would just say trying. We took a lot of time analyzing. We kind of had like our toe in the water, and I think I wasn't growing my book fast enough. We stayed small for a lot of time, and I think we probably could have we pivoted. First year we were small, and then we had 20 agents, and then we tried the field thing, and now we finally went bigger on the call center side. And I just think I probably should have done that in year two, not year three or year four. And I just would have been further along. That's probably the only thing I would change is maybe have not second guessed this route, because we've turned out to be quite proficient at it. I mean, our agents sold a lot. I think we operationally, how much of that is based on what I know now versus what I didn't know then, I don't know. But I think if you live your life with regrets, you won't sleep very well. So
No, probably not.
and this is what I'll tell you too. This business is still more likely to fail than it is succeed because that's the nature of business. There's no guarantees, right? There's no matter how good and strong your business is, it doesn't take much to pivot or change for you to fail. So I find every day that we're successful, I'm happy. Like every day that's a win is a win. I put that win in the bank because not every day is guaranteed to be a win, and it doesn't take much for it to change. So, I still look at core value as a ever growing entity, and something that is certainly not guaranteed to be a long term success, but is on the path. And I would say the last thing I would add to it is I probably would have. I knew the archetype of person I wanted to hire 3.5 years ago. And I spent a lot of time trying to find people too from the outside who knew what they were doing, which I did, a lot of agents. But I took probably way too long going and finding and training people who fit a certain archetype. Because I think that archetype we found, which is, it's a personality trait. It's not even like a demographic trait. It's not the young hunk. It's a certain empathetic yet driven person that we have sort of identified and been able to grow. And both, we have an office team and a remote team, and it's on both sides. So we're lucky. We have really good people. Like I'm very lucky to have a great team. And now this year we get to go and have those people find the next group, so which is cool.
So this conversation just now just segued into something else. So I'm going to
Yeah.
wrap this up, or I want to ask this.
Yeah.
What's your take on organic marketing? Do you guys do any of it? Do you shy away from it? Like,
Do you
what's
mean
your
like
stance
when
on
you
it?
say organic, like just
Like
give me
getting out in
more.
the field,
Yeah,
getting in
yeah,
front
field
of
based. I
people,
mean, so
social
it's so
media,
interesting,
however
right?
you do it.
It's such a great question. Like branding and marketing are two different things. And I think a lot of times people get those things confused.
Let's talk
So I
about it.
like branding, right? Because branding brings like equity, right? And it helps the lifetime values and so on and so forth. So we do some good branding in the community. We do a lot of swag. We have a website. Try to do social media because I think it's a really good recruitment tool. It makes people feel like they're working with a real company.
Which they are.
Well, yeah, they are, right? And I think that's important because I think a lot of times people are like, "Who am I working with?" Right? We do a lot of branding. We really care about like our Google reviews and like it's just the little things, right? Just and the logo. Like we put a lot of money and time and effort into just like building a brand because we think it's valuable to us. We don't do a lot of marketing, at least in our community. Probably should do more. I think the reason we don't is because of once again the scale at which we work at. We have so many agents to feed. I probably would say one thing that I would like to do this year as well is to better vertically integrate into the marketing channels that we're in because we do rely on a lot of third party vendors to supply us with opportunities. And that's scary because they obviously have more control over your business than you should. Once again, it depends on what you're trying to build. For me, I'm not trying to build a local Philadelphia field based agency, right? The reality too is that in this market, my brand is never going to have more equity and value than the carriers themselves. So to market Core Value Insurance Group regionally, someone's going to expect me to be a boutique shop, which I'm really not. I mean, I could send someone to your house, and I can, and I will, and we used to, and we have an office, but that is not the service model that we best support. We support people telephonically. That's what we do. 99.99% of what we do, right? Could I go to your home? Have I gone to people's homes? Have our agents? Absolutely, right? You know, have we sat? I've had agents sit in the equivalent of a Publix. We had you're familiar. We had people
Like
sitting in
Acme,
ShopRite's,
ShopRite.
Acme,
Okay, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so we had people sitting in ShopRite, sitting at a carrier table. We had people doing the field events and going to the senior centers, and we did that for like a whole year. And it just didn't generate a lot of business. Like it was great relationships. And if it was a singular field broker doing it, it might make sense. But it takes a long time to build those relationships and build equity there. And when in a business where you can't charge more for the client when you get it that way, right? If you sell less clients, you don't get to like charge more per client.
Right.
Our
Yeah.
revenue is regulated by the government, right? So and by the carrier themselves. So I just think the unit economics are very difficult. I think one place in which the unit economics work is when you have an ethnic channel to work. So in the city of Philadelphia, there's, for example, like a really amazing agency that serves the Chinese market that does amazing. And because that's a singular service model, and they have grown a massive book of business because they're like a trusted source in their community, but that's an equity thing that's built over time. So unless you have like a community that you like are really sort of very in tight with that you can break into and sort of get it scale, it's just hard to sell that many people. Like I just don't know that many field agents that are going out and writing hundreds and hundreds of policies their first AEP, right? It's hard to do. It's hard to do that on the phone when you have people
It is
feeding
hard
you
to
leads every day, right?
Right.
So like when you're trying to do that as a field broker, when you have no one paying for your leads, when you don't have a consistent income, it's hard. So I would say we just don't invest that much in our backyard in it because we don't particularly believe like the risk or not even the risk, the time investment at the scale that we're working at. It's like we're not playing that game, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's
Makes
not the
sense.
game that we're playing.
That makes sense. Good insight too, because that's not something that maybe I would have thought about, right? Like the time it would take to acquire the customer, and obviously you can't raise the price because, like you said, prices or our commissions or revenue is all regulated by the government and its carriers. Very, very good insight on that. Final thoughts. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything that you want to leave with?
I mean,
Uh,
what I will say is that it's awesome that you're doing this. Like it's the fact, you're a lot of people get stagnant in a career and they get stagnant in an opportunity. And I think being a thought leader and being willing to have conversations where you can learn for me, I think I've learned the most by having conversations with others in our industry, and that have experience and have sort of a diverse background. I certainly appreciate your time, and I think that Dave and I were talking about it. I was like, "How's Eric doing?" He's like, "Man, he's the best. He's killing it." But I would say even seeing your leadership style, I brought two of my younger managers down, to hang with you guys for a bit, this past summer, and they both came back. They're like, "Wow, Eric is so organized," and a word you used earlier, like so disciplined in his process, like just the way that he coaches and communicates, and you know, those are the things that set you up to be successsul. I mean, ideas are a dime a dozen. Everyone's got a good idea,
Everybody's got
right?
one,
I
yeah.
mean, like, let's be realistic. We could sit here and probably, shoot back and forth with business ideas as many times as we want. And by the way, maybe one out of the 100 we throw out would be good. That's not what it dictates success, right? It's like showing up every day. It is being positive with your team, and being communicative, and it's being accountable, right? And extremely disciplined. So I think you obviously have just the fact that you even set this up and you're doing this, and like you're willing to learn from other people, but the way that you're operating your team is very clear proof that you're on a very good success path, because it's not easy. Like, that is not the standard. It's not. It is not the standard by any means. Like, I've worked around people that, a wide range of people. Most people can't operate, as disciplined as you do. So I would commend you, and tell you to keep doing it, because I think it's going to continue to keep going a good success path.
Austin, I appreciate the kind words more than you know, my man.
Of course.
Thank you for taking the time. I really
No,
appreciate your
thank
time as
you.
well. And sorry about earlier with all the mix up, but I'm glad we were
Hey,
able to have this
listen,
conversation
I'm
and
happy
really
we were able
get
to
to
hang. It's a cold Wednesday night in Philadelphia. The Sixers aren't playing to break my heart tonight, so
it.
anytime I can chop it up with a friend is a good thing. So I
Likewise,
appreciate
likewise.
it.
Listen, you have a great one. I'm sure we'll speak again
Absolutely.
in the future. If you are in the Philadelphia area and you fit the archetype we kind of talked about earlier, someone that's empathetic but driven, please check out Core Value. They're led by great people, especially Austin and his sister, who we didn't get a chance to speak
I know
about.
we didn't go too
But
deep with my sister, but my sister
uh,
is my business partner, and my sister is, she's the bull and the horns. She really is the one who runs things. But no, I mean, I will touch on. I said the last thing is my last piece of advice is it is not always easy to work with family, but there's nothing more rewarding.
I love that.
It is meaningful. My wife works with us. My sister works with us. My cousin is our VP of HR, who I've worked with for a long time, and it is not easy, and we challenge each other, and steel sharpens steel. It at times can be hard, but having those people you can trust is really, man, I know I mentioned earlier, is really meaningful. So my sister is a great part of our business and super important to what we do, but yeah, if you're someone who is afraid to work, and it doesn't mean it's always going to work with your family, and but I will tell you that hiring friends, I don't know, hiring family, it's a better story. Once again, it's nice having people that have your back, and it's
Absolutely.
not easy in life to find those things. So
Absolutely. Shout out to your sister. Shout out
yeah,
to Eric and Aldo. Austin, it's been a great conversation, my
appreciate
man.
you, Eric. You have a good
I'm
night.
sure you too, my man. And shout out to the Sixers. Go VJ
That's
Edgecomb.
it. That's it. Hopefully Joel Embiid's healthy for the playoffs this year. We'll see.
Woo. Fingers
Fingers
crossed.
crossed.
Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
All right. Good night,
Have a good
brother.
one, my
Thanks.
friend. Yes, sir.